How many lies can a marriage survive before the truth kicks in the front door? I thought I knew my husband. I thought I was his one and only. Until a woman showed up claiming to be his wife too, and she wasn't the last. Before we dive in, thank you so much to all my amazing subscribers for your continued support. Your encouragement is what keeps these emotional, powerful stories coming. Don't forget to turn on your notifications so you never miss an update, and if you're new here, make sure to subscribe to help bring more inspiring and dramatic real-life stories to light. It was a typical afternoon, or at least it seemed that way at first. The sun was low in the sky, casting a soft glow through the kitchen window as I moved about the house, lost in the routine of folding laundry and tidying up after the kids. Ben was supposed to be working late at the office, and the children were still at school, giving me a rare moment of peace. But then came the knock. It wasn't loud, but it was persistent, 1, 2, 3 quick raps that echoed in the quiet house. At first, I figured it was a neighbor, maybe someone asking for a favor. The doorbell hadn't rung, so I didn't think much of it. But as I opened the door, everything changed. A woman stood there. Drenched from the rain, her dark hair clinging to her face, and her eyes wide with urgency. She looked familiar, though I couldn't immediately place her. "I'm sorry to bother you," she began, her voice shaking slightly. "But I need to talk to you about Ben." Ben. My heart skipped a beat. "What about him?" I asked, trying to keep my tone steady, though inside, my mind was already racing. She stepped closer, her eyes never leaving mine. "I'm his wife." The words hung in the air, thick and heavy. His wife? The thought barely had time to settle when she added, "I'm Megan. I've been married to Ben for 5 years. And I'm not the only one." The shock of her words felt like an electric shock to my system. It was as though the world shifted underneath me, and the life I thought I knew came crashing down. I took a step back, my hand instinctively gripping the doorframe for support. "What do you mean?" "I'm his wife," I managed to say, though I could barely believe the words that were coming out of my mouth. How could she be married to him too? We had been together for 8 years. Ben had never mentioned anything about her. Megan's expression softened, a mix of sympathy and frustration in her eyes. "He's been lying to both of us. You deserve to know the truth." I wanted to demand answers, to shout at her for coming here and ruining everything. But all I could do was stand there, frozen, as the world around me began to spin. Ben had been living a double life, a life I had no idea existed. And now, this woman was here to tear apart everything I thought I knew about my husband. "I don't understand," I whispered, the words barely escaping my lips. "Why didn't he tell me? How long has this been going on?" Megan's face twisted with pain, as if the truth was as hard for her to bear as it was for me. "He's been with other women too," she said, voice trembling. "But I've had enough of the lies. I'm done pretending everything's fine." Her words kept swirling in my mind, drowning out everything else. How had I missed this? How had I not seen the signs? The late nights, the secretive behavior, the unexplained absences. It was all there, hidden in plain sight. And I had been blind to it all. Megan took a step closer, her voice growing more urgent. "You have to confront him. You need to know the full truth, because Ben's been living with 2 families, 2 lives. And now, I'm ready to tell you everything." I could feel the tension building in my chest as the reality of her words settled in. What had I missed? What had Ben been hiding from me? And most importantly, how would I ever face him again? The door to my life had just been thrown wide open, revealing a world I hadn't known existed. And now, there was no turning back. I closed the door behind me, my heart pounding in my chest. The world outside seemed suddenly unfamiliar, the air thick with the weight of Megan's words. I could still feel her presence, her frantic energy still hanging in the air like smoke from a fire. She was still here, lingering in my mind, her face seared into my memory. The house, which had always felt like a home, a safe place, now felt like a cage, a trap that I had walked into unknowingly. How had Ben been able to pull this off? How had he been living with two wives, two separate lives, without me seeing through it? I walked into the kitchen, leaning against the counter, trying to steady my breath. My thoughts were swirling, and my head was pounding. I needed answers, and I needed them now. But Ben wasn't home. He was still at the office, supposedly working late. But how late would he be? Would he even come home tonight? Would he even care to explain himself? I grabbed my phone, my fingers shaking as I dialed his number. I listened to it ring, feeling each passing second stretch into eternity. The seconds felt like hours, and as the voicemail came on, I felt my stomach drop. He's not answering. The knot in my stomach tightened. I couldn't wait any longer. I needed to know everything. Every last detail of the truth. I had to face him. The lies he had been feeding me for years, about his late nights, his so-called business trips, everything now felt like a bad dream. I looked at the clock. It was already after 6. The kids would be home soon, and I couldn't bear to have them walk into this chaos. But I also couldn't pretend that everything was fine. I had to confront him. The sooner, the better. I felt a wave of nausea, but I knew I had to do this. Hours later, Ben walked through the door, his face lighting up when he saw me in the kitchen. He didn't seem to notice the tension in the air. He smiled and dropped his briefcase by the door, hanging his coat up. "Hey, babe. How was your day?" he asked, his voice casual, almost too casual. He was oblivious to the storm that was about to hit. I couldn't hold it in anymore. "Ben, we need to talk," I said, my voice cold, steady, but laced with a tension that made him pause. His smile faltered, his eyes narrowing as he looked at me. "About what?" "About Megan," I said, each word like a weight lifting off my chest, but also dragging me further into this nightmare. His face went pale. His hand stopped in midair as he took off his jacket, and I saw his jaw tighten. For a moment, there was a silence that felt like it could stretch forever. His eyes searched mine, and for the first time in years, I saw fear in them. "You've already talked to her?" Ben's voice cracked, a shadow of panic creeping into his words. I nodded, feeling my heart sink even deeper. "She came to my door. She says she's your wife, and she's been for 5 years. Ben's face contorted, and he stepped closer to me, his hands reaching for mine, but I pulled back. I wasn't sure I could even touch him without feeling repulsed. "Lily, I can explain," he said quickly, his voice hurried, but I could hear the lie in his words already. It was like he was rehearsing a script that he had written for years. "Explain? You're married to another woman, Ben," I shouted, my anger finally breaking through the calm. "How long has this been going on? How many others, Ben? How many lies have you told me?" His face was ghostly pale now, and I saw the weight of his guilt settle in. He opened his mouth to speak but shut it again. He looked at me, then down at the floor, and then back at me. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. He had no good explanation, no easy excuse. It was all crashing down, and I was standing at the epicenter of his double life. "I never wanted you to find out like this," he whispered, almost to himself. "I never wanted to hurt you." "Well, congratulations," I said bitterly, my voice laced with sarcasm. "Because you've done a hell of a job." "Lily, please, listen," he began again, but I held up my hand, stopping him in his tracks. "No. You don't get to explain this away. You don't get to make excuses. I need answers, and I need them now." My hands were shaking, and I could feel the adrenaline coursing through me. Ben stepped back, his face a mixture of guilt and fear. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this. I didn't mean for you to get hurt." I was confused. "I love you. But I loved her too." The words hit me like a slap. He loved her too? I took a step back, the pain more overwhelming than anything I had ever felt. "You think that makes it okay? That makes it okay to betray me like this?" His voice cracked as he spoke, desperation taking over. I'm sorry, Lily. Please, we can fix this. I shook my head, tears welling up in my eyes. No, Ben. I don't think we can fix this. I don't think you even want to. The truth had come crashing down. The man I thought I knew, the man I had spent my life with, was nothing like I had imagined. The double life he'd been living, the lies he'd been feeding me, they were all exposed now. And I was left standing in the wreckage, unsure of what came next. The silence that hung between us felt suffocating. Ben's eyes were filled with regret, but I couldn't bring myself to care. Every word he said felt like another layer of deceit, another excuse he'd prepared for this exact moment. But no excuse was going to make this right. I paced the kitchen, my thoughts a whirlwind of confusion, anger, and disbelief. The clock ticked louder in my ears, each second dragging on like an eternity. I couldn't stop the tears from falling, even though I hated how weak I felt. How could I have been so blind? How could I have trusted him, shared my life, my dreams, my hopes with someone who had been living a completely different reality? Lily, please, let me explain, Ben said again, his voice trembling with desperation. He moved toward me, but I took a step back. My heart had never hurt this much before, and I couldn't bear to have him so close when I was falling apart. Explain? What is there to explain, Ben? I couldn't hold the bitterness back. You're married to another woman, and you've been lying to me for God knows how long. You've been lying to me while I've been raising our children, building a life we promised to each other. I looked him in the eyes, the anger and betrayal burning through me. I've been nothing but faithful to you. I've stood by you. And this is what I get in return? He lowered his gaze, unable to meet my eyes. I never wanted it to hurt you, Lily. I swear, I didn't. I don't know when everything got so messed up. His words trailed off as he ran his hands through his hair, the guilt washing over him. But I didn't feel sorry for him. I wasn't going to waste my tears for a man who had so easily discarded everything we had built together. So, what now, Ben? What happens now that the truth is out? What do you expect me to do? To forgive you? I don't expect forgiveness, Lily, he said softly. I just want you to understand that it wasn't like I planned this. It's not like I woke up one day and thought, let me go and ruin my marriage. I don't care about your excuses anymore, Ben. I shouted. I don't care if you didn't plan this. The fact is, you did it. You chose her. You chose to keep this secret, to lie to me, to hurt me. My chest tightened as I spoke, the air in the room growing thick with the weight of my words. The reality of it all was sinking in. I had been living a lie. And worse, I had no idea who this man was anymore. The person I thought I knew, the man I had trusted, built a family with, was gone. Ben reached out, his hands trembling. Lily, please, don't leave me. I love you. I didn't want this. I still want to fix this. I shook my head, tears falling freely now, unrestrained. How can you fix this, Ben? How can you fix something that's been broken for so long? There was a knock at the door, interrupting the tension in the room. My heart skipped a beat. Who could that be? But I already knew. I didn't want to open it, didn't want to face the next wave of betrayal. But I had no choice. I had to face everything. I walked to the door, my legs unsteady. When I opened it, I froze. There, standing on my doorstep, was Megan. Her face was pale, her expression a mix of uncertainty and guilt. She looked so different from the woman I had met in the park weeks ago. Her clothes were neat, almost too perfect, and her hands clutched the strap of her purse tightly. I came back, Megan stammered. I know I shouldn't have come here again, but I had to tell you everything. I couldn't leave you in the dark anymore. I stared at her, my mind spinning. My heart was heavy, and I could feel the coldness of betrayal creeping through my veins. Everything? I asked, my voice icy. What could you possibly have to tell me that I haven't already heard? She looked down for a moment, then stepped closer, lowering her voice. Lily, I don't want to make this worse, but you need to know, Ben's been keeping more secrets. Things I didn't understand at first. I was his mistress, yes, but I think he was using me for something else. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. What do you mean? I asked, barely able to get the words out. I think he's been keeping a lot of things from you. More than just me. There's another woman, Lily. Someone he's been seeing off and on for years. I don't think you know about her. I gasped, my blood running cold. You're lying. That's impossible. Megan shook her head, her eyes wide with genuine fear. No, Lily, I'm not. I'm not lying. There's another woman. Ben's been living with two lives, not just one. I staggered back, my hand gripping the doorframe to keep myself from collapsing. This couldn't be true. It just couldn't. Ben had already betrayed me once. But this? A second woman? A third lie? I felt my knees weaken, and for a moment, the room seemed to spin. I stumbled backward, but Megan reached out, steadying me. You deserve to know the truth, Lily. You deserve to have the full story. I didn't know what to do with this new information. How could Ben have gotten away with this? How could I have been so blind? Ben's words echoed in my head, I love you, Lily. I didn't want this. I swear I didn't want this to happen. But nothing could undo the damage. Nothing could erase the fact that my marriage had been a lie, that the man I thought I knew had been living in a shadow world. Megan's revelation was like a second punch to the gut. I had no idea how deep the web of lies ran. But what was I supposed to do now? What kind of life could I have knowing that everything I had believed in had been shattered? I felt lost. And most of all, I felt alone. The air in the house felt colder than ever. My hands were trembling, still gripping the doorframe as Megan's words echoed in my mind. A second woman? I felt like I was drowning in a sea of betrayal. There was no safe place left for me. I wanted to scream, but the shock in my body rendered me silent. Megan stood before me, her face a mask of regret and guilt. She looked at me as if she wanted to say more, but I could hardly look at her. My heart was too heavy with the weight of everything that had been exposed. Lily, she whispered, her voice trembling slightly, I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. I never planned to get involved in all of this, but I didn't know what else to do. I thought I could make him love me. But I just don't think he's ever been capable of love, not the way you need. Her words were like poison, yet they seemed to make sense. I had never thought of Ben that way before. He had always been my husband, the man who promised me forever. But now, with every piece of the puzzle falling into place, I began to realize that the man I thought I knew was someone else entirely. I need you to leave, I said, my voice a mixture of exhaustion and resolve. I don't want you here anymore. I don't need you to tell me what I already know. Just go. Megan looked as if she wanted to argue, but she simply nodded, backing away slowly. I understand, she whispered, and then she turned and left, closing the door behind her with a soft click. I stood there for a long moment, the silence of the house pressing down on me. It felt suffocating. The reality of what had happened was sinking in, and I could feel the weight of it all in my chest. But I couldn't stay like this, unable to move, unable to think. I had to face Ben. I walked into the living room, where Ben was sitting on the couch, his head in his hands. His shoulders were hunched, his face pale with guilt. When I stepped into the room, he looked up at me, his eyes filled with desperation. Lily, he began, his voice hoarse. I swear to God, I never wanted to hurt you. I never wanted any of this to happen. It just got out of hand. I clenched my fists. Out of hand? You've been living a lie, Ben. You've been living a life that wasn't real, and I've been the fool, believing it all. I've been the one who's given you everything, my trust, my love, my life, and you've thrown it all away. Please, just let me explain, he said, rising from the couch, his hands outstretched, as if reaching for me. I don't want your explanation. I shouted, the pain in my chest swelling into rage. I don't need you to justify any of this. There's nothing you can say to make this okay. Ben flinched, the hurt on his face almost unbearable to see. But I wasn't going to stop now. I had been living in the dark for so long, trusting him when he didn't deserve it. This was my moment. I've heard enough, I said, my voice shaking but firm. I want a divorce. Ben's face went white. He opened his mouth as if to say something, but no words came. He stood there, paralyzed, his gaze fixed on me as if he couldn't believe what I had just said. For a moment, there was silence, the kind that swallows you whole. Lily, please, he finally whispered, his voice breaking. I can't lose you. You mean everything to me. I love you. His words hit me like a slap, but they didn't have the power they once did. The man who claimed to love me had betrayed me in ways I couldn't even begin to comprehend. The love I had for him, the love I thought we shared, was gone. Love? I repeated, shaking my head slowly. If you loved me, you wouldn't have lied to me. If you loved me, you wouldn't have broken my heart over and over again. I don't want you in my life anymore, Ben. It's over. The words hung in the air between us, thick with finality. Ben stood frozen, unable to speak. I could see the tears in his eyes, but they didn't move me. Not anymore. I've already made my decision, I said, my voice steady, but the pain was still there, buried deep beneath the surface. I want a divorce. I need to move on with my life. I need to find myself again. Ben dropped his gaze to the floor, his shoulders shaking with silent sobs. I stood there, watching him, but I didn't feel sorry for him. Not anymore. I'm sorry, Lily, he whispered, his voice barely audible. I never meant to hurt you. I turned my back on him, walking toward the door, but before I could leave, he called out, his voice cracking. Lily, don't leave me. Please. I'll do anything. I'll change. I promise. But his words were empty. I couldn't let him manipulate me anymore. I walked out, closing the door behind me with a soft click. I went straight to my car and drove for what felt like hours, letting the tears fall freely. I had been betrayed. My marriage had been shattered, and there was no going back. But as I drove, something shifted within me. The anger and the hurt were still there, but I began to feel a small glimmer of hope, buried beneath the layers of pain. I didn't need Ben. I didn't need a man who had broken me. I had my children. I had my strength. I had my life. It wasn't over. I wasn't over. And I would find a way to rebuild. The following weeks were nothing short of a blur. The house, once filled with laughter and warmth, felt colder now. Every room seemed to echo with the absence of a life I thought I knew. Ben, my husband, the man who had promised me forever, was now just a distant memory. It wasn't just the betrayal that hurt, it was the realization that everything I had worked so hard for had been built on a lie. Yet, as time passed, I started to find pieces of myself again. I spent hours in my car, listening to the silence of the world outside. The hum of my engine, the rustle of the wind, the occasional horn of passing cars, these became my comfort. They reminded me that life was still moving, even if I felt stuck. I knew that I had to move forward. For me. For my children. I spent more time with them, the people who had always loved me unconditionally. Ella and Jake were the center of my world. They were young, and they didn't fully understand what had happened between their father and me, but their presence brought me a sense of purpose I had been desperately lacking. One evening, after dinner, I sat with them on the couch, watching their favorite show. The sound of their laughter filled the room, and for the first time in weeks, I allowed myself to smile. It felt good to just be their mom again. I didn't need to pretend to be happy, but I was starting to feel more like myself, even in the aftermath of all the pain. I didn't hear from Ben for days after our confrontation. Part of me was relieved. His absence gave me the space I needed to breathe, to think. The second part of me, the part that still had some shred of hope left for him, wondered what he was doing, if he was feeling the guilt that seemed to weigh him down every time we spoke. But then, one evening, my phone rang. I didn't recognize the number. Lily, the voice on the other end said, and I felt a chill run down my spine. It was Ben. His voice sounded strained, as if he had been crying. "What do you want, Ben?" I asked, my tone sharp, but weary. "I'm sorry," he said. "I know I don't deserve another chance, but I'm begging you. Please. I've been going to therapy. I've been trying to fix myself. I want to make this right. I want to fix what I've broken." I closed my eyes, swallowing hard. I had spent so long hoping for his apology, for him to show remorse, but now that it was here, it felt like too little, too late. His words, though sincere, couldn't erase the scars. "I don't know if I can ever forgive you, Ben," I said, my voice shaking with a mixture of sorrow and strength. "You shattered me. You took away everything I trusted, everything I believed in. And now, you expect me to just forget it all?" "I know," he said quietly. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I just want to be better for you, for Ella and Jake. I can't undo the past, but I'm asking for a chance to prove that I can be the man I should have been all along." I didn't respond right away. My heart was torn in two. I wanted to believe him, I wanted to have hope, but deep down, I knew that giving him another chance would be a mistake. It wasn't just about forgiveness, it was about trust, and that had been destroyed beyond repair. "I need space, Ben," I said finally. "I need time to think. I need to be alone for a while. I don't know what the future holds for us, but I can't keep living in this fog. I need clarity. I need to rebuild my life, with or without you." There was a long silence on the other end of the phone. I could hear Ben's breath, heavy and uneven, but he didn't speak. "I'll give you time, Lily," he said after a moment. "But I won't give up on us. I promise." I hung up without saying another word. My heart ached, but I knew I had made the right choice. I wasn't ready to let Ben back into my life, not yet. Maybe not ever. But I knew I needed to focus on my own healing first. It was time to put myself and my children above everything else. Weeks turned into months, and I began to adjust to my new reality. Ben's attempts to reach out were constant. He would send text messages, letters, and even flowers, but nothing seemed to reach me. I had closed that door in my heart, and I wasn't sure it would ever be open again. I didn't know what the future held, but I was learning to live without Ben. I was rediscovering who I was, separate from him, and it felt liberating. I started to take long walks, enjoying the fresh air and the feeling of being free. I reconnected with old friends, people I had lost touch with over the years. I laughed again, something I hadn't done in a long time. As the months went on, I realized that I didn't need Ben to be whole. I had always been enough, and I would continue to be enough, whether or not he ever came back. And then one day, Ben stopped calling. The messages stopped. The flowers stopped arriving. It was as if he had disappeared from my life entirely. It hurt, but at the same time, it was a relief. It was the final piece of closure I needed. I wasn't angry anymore. The bitterness had faded. I was no longer waiting for something from Ben. I had moved on, and that was all that mattered. I was starting fresh, with my children, and the possibility of a future that was all my own. It wasn't easy. It wasn't perfect. But it was mine. And that was enough. That's the end.